You talk about the step one for destroying America. The book is the 3 steps. You say that some people will have to sacrifice in order their existing rights in order for others to have new ones, and it screams of Ibram Kendi, who writes, the only solution to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only solution to present discrimination is future discrimination. This used to be the type of thing that people would deny. Right? Like, you would deny that was the reason you were doing it. Of course, we all just want equality. There's no longer even a claim of that anymore, and it seems particularly brazen.
It is pretty amazing how open this stuff now is. I mean, Ibram Kendi literally suggests that any system that results in inequality between groups is in effect a racist system, and there are only 2 categories of people, racist and anti-racist. If you are anti-racist, you wish to tear down the system. If you are racist, you don't want to tear down the system. So we can simply label you a racist by virtue of the fact that you are pro-America and that you believe in the systems of checks and balances and the rights of the Declaration of Independence. These are all bad things. Instead, we are to look to outcomes as the ultimate adjudicator of whether something is morally correct, which is precisely the opposite of what the founders thought and precisely the opposite of traditional morality, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between the old claim of equality and the new one of equity. Like, these are, the words sound very similar, but they have very different meanings. And I think the American people are not even near the point where they're starting to pick up the change in approach there. Do you see that coming?
Absolutely. I think that eventually Americans might figure it out, but the similarity in the 2 words has allowed the left to really obfuscate. So they will say things like, all inequality is inequity, which is patently absurd, right? I am unequal to LeBron James in my ability to play basketball. That is not an inequity. That's just a reality, right? LeBron James might not be equal in my ability to speak politically. Okay, that's not inequality. That's not inequity. That's just inequality. That there's a certain level of human beings being different that is just natural to human beings, and that exists in all varieties of life. It has nothing to do with color. It exists in every room. If you draw a line down the middle of the room, there will be 2 groups that are unequal in certain ways. That is just the way life works. To suggest that is the result of systems is ultimately not only self-defeating, but intensely crazy. I mean, it basically suggests that if we only perfect the system, we will all end up as widgets who are exactly the same in every respect. Not only that, Ibram Kendi basically removes all individual agency. So any choice that you personally make that's bad for you is not you personally making a bad choice. It's the system has forced you to make a bad choice, which means all individual responsibility is absolved of you. You no longer have either the capacity to make an individual decision or the responsibility for making an individual decision. Well, the good news there is that you're never responsible for your own failures. The bad news is that you're never going to be able to be a success, because the only things that bring about success in normal free life are you making good decisions.
Are you surprised, Ben, at how quickly this disintegrationist view is being picked up right now from from sort of the white fragility sort of mindset, where the word racism just means something different than it used to mean? They've just taken it and they've adopted it into something totally different. This systemic idea of racism that is against everything that we were taught growing up. And now you see this so widespread. You see NBA players doing press conferences where they're talking about these bizarre, seemingly fringe concepts that have been thrust into the mainstream in such a short period of time.
I think this was boiling under the surface for several decades. So Shelby Steele talks about how in the 1960s, there was an overt shift from language regarding racism and the definition of racism. He says that the original definition of racism was exactly what you and I tend to think of racism as, namely, you think that somebody is inferior or superior based on their race. That racism was an obstacle to free choice of individuals. That was the reason why racism was bad, is because it created obstacles to you being able to make good and free decisions on your own behalf that result in exactly the results you deserve. Now that has shifted, and the way that shifted is by suggesting that all individual decision-making is the result of systems, and therefore, again, all bad decision-making cannot be attributed to the individual. It has to be attributed to the system. And therefore, the more unsuccessful you are, the more of a claim you actually have against the system. It actually creates an incentive for victimhood, because now that you're a victim of the system, you get to tear down the system of which you're a victim. You actually are given an enormous amount of control to tear down the system. If you're successful, that, in effect, makes you unable to speak about the system, because now you're a defender of exactly the system that has produced the inequality. That's incredibly dangerous stuff. It tended to be fringe in the 1960s. Over time, it's gained a lot of credence. I think a lot of political actors have a real interest in keeping discussions of racism alive rather than looking at actual solutions. You can see that over the past couple of years. I just wrote a column about this with regard to Kamala Harris. If you want to see how, I would say, in tool-driven form, how practically people view racism as a tool for political success, all you have to do is look at Kamala Harris, who a year ago was calling Joe Biden a racist. Then she flipped, and Joe Biden is the great light bringer with regard to unity and anti-racism. And when asked about it, she just said, well, yeah, that was a debate. Well, yeah, that was something I had to say. So it's an instrumental view of racism. Racism is something that you discuss in order to get ahead. Racism is not a problem to be solved so we can move beyond it.
Hi, Stu Bergier of Stu Does America here. Thanks so much for watching our video. Did you know you can watch our entire catalog for free right here on our channel? Subscribe now and be sure to hit the thumbs up button on all the episodes you watch, because that's how they know you like this stupid show. And that little bell in the corner as well. Make sure you click that. You'll get notifications every time we post new content. Stu Does America every weekday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here.